him, baby!
Ori and the Blind Forest is my favorite Metroid game. That may be a bold statement, but as someone who adores the concept of Metroid, it's the easiest way to describe the impact Ori's had on me. Coming seemingly out of nowhere, Ori and the Blind Forest hits every nail right on the head. Narrative, presentation, and gameplay, while topping the best of its genre. Let's break it down. The beauty of Ori's plot is in its minimalistic approach. Dialogue is used sparingly, yet implemented perfectly. The Guardian of Nibble, the Spirit Tree, acts as the narrator, often chiming in with very short lines to advance the plot. Barring a few cutscenes, most dialogue happens while playing, maintaining the flow of the game. Text fades in as the Spirit Tree's powerful voice compels you to stop and listen, without actually forcing you to, which I find to be the best way to tell a story in a video game. It's a neat feature that allows the player to dictate the pace of the game. Ori and the Blind Forest tells a story of love, life, death, sorrow, revenge, and forgiveness from not just Ori's perspective, but all of the other characters as well. It's something you just have to experience for yourself, as every scene left me craving more. Emotions run high, aided by an absolutely outstanding presentation. In fact, Ori and the Blind Forest may be one of the most beautiful looking games I've ever played. The hand-drawn art style is so wonderful, sometimes you'll just want to stop and admire the staggering amount of attention to detail. From the vast canyon of the Valley of Wind to the foreboding atmosphere of the misty woods, this world of Nibble captivates you immediately. It sets the bar for gorgeous animation, as Ori's fluid movement is almost hypnotic. These visuals are backed by a beautifully orchestrated soundtrack that never fails to fit the current tone. Oddly enough, I find most games like Ori that implement ambient music rather than an upbeat or active soundtrack like your Marios or your Sonics to be somewhat forgettable. However, despite the ambient approach, Ori manages to exceed expectations while staying true to its simpler roots. Many of the tracks are very atmospheric, except for the fact that one distinct melody sifts its way into almost every tune. Now, Ori's narrative and presentation are fantastic, but that can be easily seen from the surface. It's only once you get into the thick of it when the game truly starts to stand out. Heavily inspired by the Metroidvania genre, players freely explore a large, interconnected world until encountering obstacles forcing them to seek out new abilities in order to progress. This was popularized by the two franchises that give it its namesake, Metroid and Castlevania. I've yet to play a Castlevania game, but I do have a fair bit of Metroid experience, and there's one thing that never fails to frustrate me: the backtracking. Not so much returning to a previously explored area to progress after finding some new upgrades, but the aimless wandering of the world in search of a cryptic puzzle. The moment I have absolutely no clue where I'm headed and what I'm supposed to be doing is the moment I put down the controller, but Ori doesn't fall into this trap. Where Metroid can lack direction, forcing you to idly wander, I always had an idea of where to head next in Nibble. Your next objective is always highlighted on the map, and the world is structured efficiently by having the Spirit Tree reside in the middle of the map, leading to each new area, making it simple to navigate. It doesn't necessarily make the game easy, but it lacks the elements that discourage newcomers from jumping into the genre. There's also still plenty of nooks and crannies with hidden upgrades, rewarding those who dissect every room, so it never feels too linear. However, what really differentiates Ori and the Blind Forest from other titles in the genre is the added emphasis of platforming with some light RPG elements. Ori controls like a dream from the very beginning. Combat is simple, with an attack that automatically locks onto nearby enemies, maintaining the flow of the platforming in areas that would otherwise control fairly clunky. With some standout abilities like the charge jump that allows Ori to soar through the air, smashing through previously impenetrable obstacles, or the bash that grants Ori another more powerful jump, redirecting enemies and projectiles, there's always a challenge demanding the player to utilize them to their full potential. The bash in particular is one of the most interesting maneuvers in the game, reaching its full potential in the most tense and satisfying platforming sections Ori and the Blind Forest has to offer. It's unlike any upgrade I've come to expect in this type of game, being extremely useful in withstand those tough situations. Continuing the trend of innovative mechanics, with the use of a little bit of energy, Ori can place a checkpoint just about anywhere. This is genius because it allows the player to influence the difficulty of the game on the fly. If you happen to die in other Metroid titles, you end up respawning in the last sporadically placed save point, often forcing you to retread a ton of ground. Ori, on the other hand, cuts the time needlessly spent returning to the point of death, yet if you forget to place a checkpoint, you will lose a substantial amount of progress. It encourages you to play smarter and get right back into it, because it was your fault to begin with. It's a neat little mechanic that keeps the game hard, but fair, as well as acting as a way to access your skill tree, which is where those RPG elements kick in. 3 skill trees consisting mostly of passive buffs ranging from defense and offense to exploration are your primary means of progression. Experience is acquired not only from combat, but also from those hidden upgrades, further rewarding exploration. It makes the already satisfying combat worth continuing, as you won't be able to reach the far ends of the skill trees without slaying a fair amount of enemies. Ori and the Blind Forest does just about everything right, from an engaging and emotional narrative to top-of-the-line presentation to a mixing pot of interesting and polished as hell gameplay mechanics. Everything adds up to make this game one of my favorites of all time, something I'll always remember. To all you angry Metroid fans waiting years for a proper entry to the series, the next best thing is waiting for you. The time is now. To anyone who's been hesitant to jump into Metroidvania, there's never been a better place to start.